Some people live their entire lives without knowing that their DNA is extremely rare. Why are there those who sleep only 4 hours and still function perfectly? Why are there people who feel almost no pain or whom mosquitoes never bite? Are they hidden advantages or dangerous errors of human biology? And most unsettling, what if these traits weren't gifts but silent warnings? Stay tuned because what you are about to discover is written in your DNA. While most people need between 7 and 8 hours of sleep to function normally, there is an extremely small group that completely breaks this rule. They are people who sleep only 4 or 5 hours a night and still wake up with energy, focus, and mental clarity. This phenomenon is not a product of discipline or training. It is directly related to a genetic mutation known as DEC2. This variation alters how the brain regulates sleep cycles, allowing deep rest to occur in less time. Instead of spending long hours sleeping, these people quickly enter the most restorative phases of sleep. Their brain recovers faster. Their body resets in less time. From the outside, it seems like an extraordinary advantage. More hours awake mean more time to work, create, and learn. However, this condition does not make anyone immune to fatigue. When a person without this mutation tries to mimic this pattern, the result is usually chronic exhaustion, cognitive failures, and health problems. The body simply isn't designed to function this way without that specific genetic alteration. Even in those who possess the DEC2 gene, scientists have observed that not everything is positive. Prolonged stress, lack of emotional rest, and modern demands can push the body beyond its natural limits. Sleeping little does not mean being invincible. This trait is extremely rare. It has been identified in only a small number of families worldwide. And even today, researchers do not fully understand all its long-term consequences. The case of short sleep demonstrates a fundamental truth. When DNA deviates from the norm, it doesn't always do so to offer a clear advantage. Sometimes it simply rewrites the rules. And living by different rules also has a price. The human body is designed to break under extreme forces. However, there are people whose skeletons seem to defy this basic logic. A genetic mutation related to the LRP5 gene causes a bone density much higher than average. In simple terms, their bones are much thicker and more resistant than those of the rest of the population. Blows that would cause severe fractures in other people barely leave them with a bruise. This trait is not the result of training or a special diet. It is present from birth. The bone forms with a more compact structure, less porous and capable of withstanding extraordinary impacts. From the outside, this condition may seem like a blessing. Lower risk of fractures, greater resistance to accidents. But as with many genetic rarities, the advantage has a hidden side. Excessively dense bones can lead to unexpected medical problems. If orthopedic surgery is needed, drilling or cutting the bone becomes much more complicated. Interventions last longer. Surgical risk increases. In addition, the body's natural balance can be affected. The skeleton is not just a rigid structure, it interacts with muscles, nerves, and joints. Altering that proportion can lead to stiffness, chronic discomfort, or movement limitations over time. This type of mutation is extremely rare. Most documented cases come from a few families around the world. For years, these people lived without knowing their resistance had a genetic explanation. The story of nearly unbreakable bones proves that DNA doesn't create superheroes. It creates bodies that function differently. And when the body breaks the usual rules, medicine must also adapt. For most people, mosquitoes are an inevitable nuisance. But there is a small group that seems to be completely invisible to them. This phenomenon has nothing to do with blood or luck. It is related to a variation of the ABCC11 gene, which influences the chemical compounds the skin naturally releases. Mosquitoes are not guided only by the carbon dioxide we exhale, but by the body odor produced by bacteria on the skin. In these people, the chemical composition of sweat is different. It produces fewer substances that attract insects. As a result, mosquitoes simply do not detect them as an interesting target. From the outside, it seems like a minor, almost trivial advantage, but it reveals something much deeper. Small genetic variations can completely alter how other species interact with us. The interesting thing is that this mutation cannot be learned or replicated. There are no creams or habits that mimic it permanently. It is written in the DNA. In addition, this same genetic variation is related to other uncommon traits of the human body. It does not act in isolation. It is part of a broader system that modifies how the body produces and releases certain compounds. This trait is more common in East Asian populations, but remains rare globally. Many people who possess it never realize that their experience with mosquitoes is different from the rest. This case demonstrates how something as simple as a bite can reveal a deep genetic difference. The human body does not only respond to the environment, it also modifies it. For many people, body odor is a constant concern. However, there is a small group that practically develops no odor, even after sweating. The cause is not hygiene or lifestyle. It is genetic. Again, the ABCC11 gene plays a key role. This genetic variation affects the functioning of the apocrine glands, responsible for producing the sweat that bacteria transform into body odor. When these glands are less active, the sweat contains fewer compounds that feed the bacteria. The result is simple but surprising. Fewer bacteria, less odor. This same mutation is directly related to another uncommon trait, dry earwax, or earwax with a dry and flaky texture, instead of wet and sticky. Both characteristics are connected by the same biological mechanism. While it may seem like an obvious social advantage, this trait also reveals something deeper about how small genetic variations affect multiple body systems at the same time. A single mutation can modify sweat, odor, skin chemistry, and even the composition of earwax. This trait is common in certain regions of the world, especially East Asia, but remains uncommon on a global scale. Many people possess it without being aware that their body functions differently. The fascinating thing is that these kinds of differences were not designed to benefit modern humans. They are the result of ancient adaptations that remain in our DNA. The human body keeps traces of its evolutionary history in details as everyday as the smell or texture of earwax. And sometimes those small differences tell much larger stories. Feeling pain is one of the most basic functions of the human body. It protects, it warns, it saves lives. However, there is an extremely rare condition in which this signal simply does not exist. It is known as congenital insensitivity to pain. People born with this condition can touch hot surfaces, suffer deep cuts, or break bones without experiencing pain. At first glance, it might seem like an extraordinary advantage, but in reality, it is one of the most dangerous conditions a human being can have. Pain is not there to punish. It is there to warn. Without it, the body doesn't know when to stop. Many children with this condition seriously injure themselves without realizing it. Bites on the tongue, severe burns, untreated infections that progress without clear symptoms. Additionally, these people often have difficulty regulating body temperature. They don't feel overheating in the same way others do. This increases the risk of heat stroke and other serious problems. Life expectancy can be reduced without constant supervision. Every day involves invisible risks. The most unsettling thing is that there is no cure. Treatments focus on prevention, education, and continuous monitoring. Living without pain requires being always alert. This genetic trait demonstrates an uncomfortable truth. Not all special abilities are a gift. Some are biological warnings. Pain, however unpleasant it may be, is one of the reasons the human body can survive. When it disappears, life becomes much more fragile. For most people, smell is a secondary sense. It serves to recognize pleasant aromas or warn of obvious dangers. But in some cases, this sense functions at a completely different level. Hyperosmia is a condition in which the sense of smell is extremely sensitive. People who have it can perceive odors that others do not notice at all. Distant sense, minimal changes in the environment. Body odors imperceptible to the rest. This trait is not always an advantage. In many cases, it becomes a constant burden. Common smells can be overwhelming, nauseating, or even painful. Public spaces, transportation, or enclosed places can become difficult to endure. From a biological point of view, this extreme sensitivity is related to a higher activation of the brain areas responsible for olfactory processing. The brain does not filter information with the same intensity. Everything gets through. Everything is amplified. Some people with hyperosmia can detect diseases, hormonal changes, or even emotions through smell. However, this ability usually comes accompanied by anxiety, mental fatigue, and difficulty concentrating. This trait can appear privately or be associated with neurological and hormonal changes. It is not something that can be controlled voluntarily. The body decides how much to perceive. Hyperosmia demonstrates that even the senses we consider minor can dominate the human experience when they step outside the norm. Perceiving more does not always mean living better. Sometimes feeling too much is another form of vulnerability. Among all known genetic rarities, there is one that remains hidden even to most doctors. It does not manifest in appearance, nor in behavior, nor in physical abilities. It is silently present in the blood. The Rh null type, known as golden blood, is the rarest blood group in the world. Fewer than 100 people have been identified with this characteristic in all of modern history. Their blood completely lacks Rh antigens, something that does not happen in any other blood type. This condition may seem irrelevant until a medical emergency arises. A person with Rh null blood can only receive transfusions from another person with the same type, and finding a compatible donor can be practically impossible. At the same time, these people become extraordinarily valuable donors. Their blood can save lives in critical situations, as it is compatible with multiple rare variants of the Rh system. In some cases, special banks have been created to store their blood in case of emergency. Living with Rh null blood implies constant responsibility. Surgery, an accident, or a medical complication requires extreme planning. The margin of error is minimal. This trait demonstrates once again that the rare is not always visible. Some of the deepest genetic differences are hidden in the body's most basic systems. When looking at the set of these traits, a clear conclusion emerges. Human DNA holds variations that may seem like advantages, but also involve real risks. Being genetically rare does not mean being superior. It means being different. And in many cases, that difference comes with a price that few would be willing to pay.